The transport ship shook one last time before the engines went quiet. Jun-Ho pressed his face against the small window and looked outside. Orbital Station Valora 9 stretched across the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. Lights blinked from thousands of windows. Ships moved in and out like busy insects around a hive. "We made it," said Taiho from behind him. His friend was already pulling their bags from the storage compartment. 6 months in a metal box, eating paste that tasted like sadness, but we made it. Jun-Ho smiled, but did not look away from the window. He had dreamed of this moment for years. Velorani was home to over 40 different alien species. Scientists, traders, diplomats, and explorers all lived together on this massive station. And now, 2 humans from Earth were about to join them. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Cold air rushed in, carrying strange smells that Jun-Ho could not name. Sweet and sharp, and something like wet stone. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The docking bay was enormous. The ceiling rose so high that Jun-Ho had to tilt his head all the way back to see it. Aliens of every shape moved through the space. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others crawled on 6 or 8. A few floated in special suits filled with liquid. Jun-Ho tried not to stare, but it was impossible. "Human representatives," said a voice that clicked and buzzed. "Welcome to Velornine." Jun-Ho turned to see a tall creature approaching them. It stood on 4 thin legs, and its body was covered in dark blue plates that looked like armor. 2 large eyes sat on either side of a narrow head, and its mouth moved sideways when it spoke. This was a Morani Jun-Ho remembered from his training. "I am Commander Rivik," the alien continued. "I manage this station. You will follow me." It was not a question. Jun-Ho glanced at Taiho, who shrugged. They picked up their bags and followed the commander through the crowded bay. As they walked, Jun-Ho noticed something strange. Other aliens stopped what they were doing to look at them. Conversations paused. Heads turned. Eyes followed. It was not the curious look of seeing something new. It was something else. Something that looked almost like fear. Commander Jun-Ho said carefully, "Is something wrong?" "Everyone seems nervous." Rivik's steps did not slow down. "Humans have a reputation," he said. His voice was flat. "Stories travel fast in the galaxy." "What kind of stories?" Taiho asked. The commander did not answer. He led them through a series of corridors that twisted and turned like a maze. Finally, they stopped at a door marked with symbols Jun-Ho could not read. "Your quarters," Rivik said. "A human officer named Hannah will brief you on station rules. She has been here for 3 months. She will explain things better than I can." Before Jun-Ho could ask more questions, the commander walked away. His 4 legs carried him quickly around a corner, and then he was gone. The door slid open. Inside was a small room with 2 beds, a table, and a window that showed the stars outside. A woman stood in the center of the room, arms crossed, a small smile on her face. "You must be the new ones," she said. "I am Hannah. Welcome to the strangest place in the universe." Jun-Ho dropped his bag and shook her hand. "I am Jun-Ho. This is Taiho. We just arrived." "No," Hannah said. "Everyone knows. The whole station has been talking about the new humans for days." "Why?" Taiho asked. He sat down on one of the beds and stretched his arms. "We are just scientists. I am an engineer. Jun-Ho studies animals. Nothing exciting." Hannah laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That is not how they see us. Humans are still new to the galactic community. Only 50 years since first contact, but in that time, we have built quite a reputation." She pulled out a small tablet and showed them a screen full of incident reports. Jun-Ho read the titles with growing confusion. "Human survives toxic atmosphere exposure. Human befriends hostile species on mining colony. Human eats plant matter classified as deadly poison. Reports mild stomach pain." "What is this?" Jun-Ho asked. "This is why everyone watches us," Hannah said. "Humans keep surviving things that should kill them. They keep doing things that other species consider insane, and they keep treating dangerous situations like they are normal." Taiho grinned. "So we are famous?" "We are concerning," Hannah corrected. The other species do not understand us. And things you do not understand are scary. Junho thought about this as he unpacked his bag. He had come here to study alien life, to learn about creatures no human had ever seen before. He had not expected to become one of the strange creatures himself. Out. I want to see the wildlife habitats, he said suddenly. I read that the station has research areas with live specimens from different planets. Hannah nodded slowly. They do. But access is restricted. You would need special permission from Commander Rivik. Then I will ask him. Hannah raised an eyebrow. You just arrived. Most researchers wait months before requesting habitat access. I did not travel 6 months through space to wait more months, Junho said simply. I came here to work. 2 hours later, Junho stood in Commander Rivik's office. The room was cold and filled with screens showing different parts of the station. Rivik sat behind a desk made of something that looked like black glass. You want access to the biological research wing, Rivik said. It was not a question. Already, yes, Commander. Aliens, Sideways' mouth twitched. It might have been annoyance. It might have been something else. Humans, he muttered, almost too quiet to hear. Then louder. Very well. I will grant your request, but you will have a supervisor at all times. A Marani researcher named Kellis. You will follow his instructions exactly. You will touch nothing. You will disturb nothing. Is this understood? Junho nodded. Understood. Rivik pressed a button on his desk. Kellis will meet you at the research wing entrance in 1 hour. Do not make me regret this decision, human. Junho bowed his head slightly and left the office. His heart was beating fast with excitement. He was finally going to see alien animals. Real creatures from other worlds. Back in their quarters, he pulled up the habitat species list on his tablet. Taiho looked over his shoulder as he scrolled through the entries. There were hundreds of species. Flying creatures. Swimming creatures. Things with too many legs and things with no legs at all. Then Junho stopped scrolling. One entry was different from the others. It was marked in red. There were 17 warning symbols next to it, more than any other species on the list. Valoran glider, the entry read. Classification, extreme toxicity. Contact protocol, none permitted. Fatality rate, 97% of known species. Note, 3 researchers have died. Habitat 7 is permanently sealed. Junho stared at the screen. Somewhere on this station, there were creatures so dangerous that no one was allowed to touch them. So deadly that they were locked away forever. He smiled. Taiho, he said quietly, I think I found something interesting. His friend groaned. Why do you say it like that? That tone always means trouble. Junho did not answer. He just kept smiling and looking at the screen, where 17 warning symbols blinked in the darkness like tiny red stars. The biological research wing smelled like 100 different forests mixed together. Junho breathed it in as he walked through the entrance, his eyes wide with wonder. Glass walls stretched on both sides of the corridor, and behind each wall was a different world. One habitat was filled with red sand and orange plants that moved without wind. Another held a small ocean where silver creatures swam in circles. A third was just mist, thick and white, with shadows moving inside it that Junho could not quite see. Please keep up, said Supervisor Kellis from ahead. The Marani researcher walked quickly on his 4 thin legs. He had not stopped talking since they met at the entrance. The research wing contains 247 species from 93 different planets. Each habitat is carefully controlled. Temperature, atmosphere, light cycles, everything must be exact. How long have you worked here? Junho asked, trying to match Kellis's speed. 14 years, Kellis answered. His voice was tight and nervous, like a wire pulled too hard. I have studied many species. I have seen many researchers come and go. Some leave because they get bored. Some leave because they get hurt. Some do not leave at all. Junho did not ask what that meant. He thought he already knew. They passed more habitats. Junho saw creatures that looked like floating jellyfish made of light. He saw something that might have been a plant, or might have been an animal, slowly reaching toward the glass with hundreds of tiny fingers. He saw a beast covered in black fur, sleeping in a pile of purple leaves. "That one is called a Mordock," Kellis said, noticing Junho's gaze. "Very gentle. It only eats fruit. But its claws are sharp enough to cut through metal. We lost a cleaning robots last month." Junho smiled. "It sounds like a cat." "I do not know what a cat is," Kellis said. "Is it dangerous?" "Sometimes," Junho admitted, "but humans love them anyway." Khalees made a sound that might have been confusion or might have been concern. They kept walking. After 20 minutes, the corridor ended at a heavy door. Warning symbols covered every part of it. Red lights blinked above the frame. A screen on the wall showed emergency protocols in 5 different languages. Kellis stopped walking. His body became very still. "This is Habitat 7, he said. His voice had changed. It was quieter now, and there was something in it that Junho recognized. Fear. "What is inside?" Junho asked, though he already knew the answer. Kellis pressed a button, and a small window in the door became clear instead of dark. Junho stepped forward and looked through. His breath caught in his chest. The habitat was beautiful. Tall trees grew toward an artificial sun. Vines hung from branches covered in blue flowers. A stream ran through the center, clear and bright. And flying between the trees were the most amazing creatures Junho had ever seen. They were about the size of cats, with long bodies covered in shimmering scales. Wide membranes stretched between their front and back legs, letting them glide through the air like living kites. Their colors shifted as they moved from purple to green to gold to silver. Their eyes were large and round, filled with intelligence and curiosity. "Valoran gliders," Kellis said. "The most beautiful species in the galaxy. And the most deadly." Junho could not look away. One of the gliders landed on a branch near the window. It tilted its head and looked at him with those big, curious eyes. "Their skin produces a neurotoxin," Kellis continued. His voice had become mechanical, like he was reading from a report. "The poison attacks the nervous system of any creature that touches them. Death occurs within 3 to 7 minutes for most species. There is no cure. There is no treatment. Once the toxin enters your body, there is nothing anyone can do." "How many species are immune?" Junho asked. 3%, Kellis said. "We have tested over 2,000 species. Only 60 showed any resistance. None of those 60 could survive prolonged contact. The gliders are lethal to everything." The creature on the branch chirped softly. It pressed its small face against the glass, leaving a faint smudge. Junho felt his heart ache. The glider looked lonely. 90 years ago, Khalees said, the gliders were nearly exterminated. Many planets wanted them destroyed. They said the creatures were too dangerous to exist. But some scientists argued to save them. They built this habitat. They brought the last survivors here. Now there are 200 left. This is their entire species. 200, Junho repeated. In the whole universe. Just 200. Yes, and they will stay here in this habitat alone until they die. No one can touch them. No one can help them. They are too dangerous. Junho watched the glider on the branch. It was still looking at him. Its tail swayed slowly, like a dog hoping for attention. "What would happen if someone entered the habitat?" he asked. Kellis turned sharply. His eyes were wide with alarm. "No one enters the habitat. No one. 3 researchers have died trying. One thought his suit would protect him. The toxin went through the suit. One thought she could move fast enough. She could not. One thought he had found a cure. He had not. But what if someone was immune?" "There is no one immune," Kellis said firmly. "Humans have not been tested, but it does not matter. The regulations are clear. No contact with Valoran gliders, ever, for any reason." An alarm suddenly rang through the corridor. Kellis looked at his communicator and made a clicking sound with his mouth. "There is an emergency in Habitat 12, he said. "One of the Mordicks has escaped its enclosure. I must go." "Go," Junho said. "I will wait here." Khalees hesitated. His eyes moved from Junho to the door of Habitat 7 and back again. "You will not enter the habitat." "I understand," Junho said. "You will not touch anything. I understand. You will wait here." "Exactly here, until I return. I understand." Kellis stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and hurried down the corridor, his forelegs carrying him quickly around the corner. Junho was alone. He turned back to the window. The glider was still there, watching him. It chirped again, louder this time. The sound was high and sweet, like a bird singing. Behind the glider, two more appeared. They glided down from the trees and landed beside the first one. Now three of them sat on the branch, all looking at Junho through the glass. He studied their body language. Their scales were bright and shifting, which his training told him meant excitement, not fear. Their eyes were wide and focused, following his movements. Their tails swayed in the same rhythm. These were not defensive behaviors. These creatures were not trying to scare him away. They were trying to get his attention. Junho pulled out his tablet and began searching through files. Human biochemistry, neurotoxin structures, skin pH levels. The more he read, the more he smiled. The Valoran glider toxin worked by bonding with certain proteins in the skin. But human skin was different. Human skin was more acidic than most species. The toxin structure would break down on contact with human skin pH levels, at least. In theory, he looked at the airlock next to the door. There was a keypad. There was a warning screen. There were 17 different protocols he would be breaking. The gliders chirped again. One of them pressed both of its small paws against the glass. "Hey there, little one," Junho whispered. He walked toward the airlock. His hand reached for the keypad. Somewhere in his mind, a voice that sounded like Kellis said, this was dangerous. This was against the rules. This could kill him. But another voice, deeper and older, said something different. These creatures had been alone for 90 years. They had been locked away, untouched, unloved, because everyone was too afraid. 200 souls, waiting for someone brave. Enough to care. Junho entered the access code he had memorized from Kellis's tablet. The airlock door opened. With a soft hiss, he stepped inside. Kellis ran through the corridors as fast as his forelegs could carry him. The emergency in Habitat 12 had been simple to fix. The Mordic had not escaped at all. It had just pushed against a sensor by accident, triggering the alarm. The creature was still sleeping in its pile of purple leaves, completely unaware of the panic it had caused. Now, Kellis was running back to Habitat 7. Something felt wrong. The human had asked too many questions. He had looked at the gliders with too much interest. And his eyes, when Kellis had left, had held something that made the Marani researcher very nervous. He reached the corridor outside Habitat 7 and stopped. The airlock door was open. For a moment, Kellis could not move. His body refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. The door was open. The human was gone. The habitat had been entered. He rushed to the observation window and looked. Inside, his communicator fell from his hand and clattered on the floor. Jonah was sitting on the ground inside the habitat. The soft grass bent beneath him. The artificial sunlight fell on his shoulders, and on his lap, against his chest, wrapped around his arm, were 3 Valoran gliders. They were not attacking him. They were not trying to escape. They were cuddled against him like pets, like friends. Their scales shifted through happy colors of gold and pink. Their eyes were half closed with contentment. One of them made a sound that Kellis had never heard before. A deep, rumbling noise that vibrated through its body. The human was petting them. His hands moved slowly over their scales, scratching gently behind their ears, and he was smiling. Kellis grabbed his communicator and screamed into it. Emergency. Habitat 7. Human inside. Repeat, human inside with gliders. Send medical team. Send everyone. Within minutes, the corridor was full. Commander Rivik arrived first, his forelegs sliding on the smooth floor as he tried to stop. Hannah came next, her face pale. Taiho followed behind her, and unlike the others, he did not look scared. He looked like he was trying not to laugh. A medical team in protective suits pushed through the crowd. They carried equipment for treating neurotoxin exposure. Scanners, injectors, emergency life support. They had prepared for the worst, but through the window, they could all see that the worst had not happened. Junho sat peacefully among the gliders. More had gathered around him now. 5, 6, 7 of them. They climbed over each other to get closer to him. They chirped and purred. One of them had climbed onto his head and was playing with his hair. "He should be dead," Rivik said. His voice was barely a whisper. "He should be dead," Anna sighed deeply. "I warned you about humans." Taiho had pulled out his personal device and was recording everything. "This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. The science community on Earth is going to lose their minds. He is going to lose his life." Rivik shouted. "The toxin is not affecting him," said a new voice. Everyone turned. A woman had pushed through the crowd. She was human, with short dark hair and tired eyes. Her coat was covered in patches from different research stations. "Who are you?" Rivik demanded. "I'm Dr. Soman," she said. "I am a human biologist. I have been working in the habitat wing for 6 months." She walked to the window and looked inside. Her expression was not surprised. It was relieved. "You knew," Kellis said. "You knew humans could survive the toxin." Solomon nodded slowly. "I suspected. I have been studying the gliders from outside the habitats. I analyzed the toxin structure. I compared it to human biochemistry. The math suggested we might be immune. But I never had permission to test it. So you let him go in there?" Rivik was shaking with anger. "You let him risk his life based on math?" "I did not let him do anything," Salman said. "I did not even know he was here until today. But I am not surprised a human did this. It is what we do." Through the intercom system, Junho's voice suddenly filled the corridor. "Hello out there. I can hear you all shouting. I want you to know that I am fine. The toxin does not affect human skin. Our pH levels break down the poison before it can enter our bodies." He held up his hand. A glider was wrapped around his wrist like a bracelet, its tail swinging happily. "See? No burning? No pain, no death. Just some very friendly creatures who really wanted someone to pet them." The medical team stood frozen, their equipment useless. "Impossible," one of them said. "This is impossible. It is very possible," Junho said through the intercom. "And more importantly, these gliders are social creatures. They need contact. They need companionship. Keeping them isolated for 90 years was not protecting them. It was hurting them." He gestured around the habitat. "Look at them. Look at how they react to touch. They are not trying to poison me. They are trying to connect with me. Their toxin is a defense against predators, not a weapon against friends." One of the gliders climbed onto his shoulder and rubbed its face against his cheek. It made the rumbling sound again, purring. "This one," Junho said softly, "I am going to call Bujel. It means star, because her scales shine like starlight." Rivik pressed his face against the window. His compound eyes were wide with 1,000 emotions. Confusion, shock, something that might have been wonder. How many other species are humans immune to? He whispered. Kellis heard the question. He thought about all the other habitats with warning signs. All the other creatures locked away because they were too dangerous. All the other species that no one could touch. "I do not know," Kellis admitted. "But I think we are about to find out." Inside the habitat, Junho had gathered more gliders around him. They came from all parts of the enclosure, gliding down from the trees, climbing up from the stream. They surrounded him like a living blanket of shimmering color. Some sat in his lap. Some hung from his arms. Some rested on his shoulders. One tiny baby glider had crawled into his shirt pocket and fallen asleep for 90 years. These creatures had not felt the touch of another living being. They had only had each other. And now, finally, someone had come who could hold them without fear. Taiho stopped recording and wiped his eyes. "I am not crying," he said. "There is just something in my eye." Hannah put a hand on his shoulder. "Sure there is." Outside the window, the crowd had grown. Word had spread through the station. Aliens of every species came to see the human who was petting the deadly gliders. They pressed against each other, fighting for a view. They whispered in 100 different languages. But inside the habitat, Junho did not notice any of them. He was too busy. He had 90 years of loneliness to make up for. 200 creatures who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Bujail chirped in his ear. He scratched under her chin. "I know," he said softly. "I am here now. You are not alone anymore." The little glider closed her eyes and purred. And somewhere in the crowd, Commander Rivik turned to Kellis and said something that would be repeated across the galaxy for years to come. "These humans," he said slowly, "are absolutely insane." Kellis could only nod, but watching through the window, watching the human covered in creatures that should have killed him, watching the pure joy on both the human's face and the glider's faces, Kellis thought that maybe insanity was not always a bad thing, maybe sometimes. The galaxy needed a little bit of crazy. The emergency council meeting was held in the largest room on the station. A circular table sat in the center, surrounded by seats designed for a dozen different body types. Screens covered the walls, showing data and reports. The air was thick with tension. Commander Rivik sat at the head of the table. Around him were representatives from every major species on the station. Morani scientists, Bavori archivists, traders from the outer colonies, and at the far end of the table, floating in a special crystal container, was Ambassador Ven of the Silurian people. Ven looked like a living gemstone. Her body was made of shifting purple crystals that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. When she spoke, her voice rang like bells. "We are here to discuss the human problem," said. Junho sat between Hannah and Taiho. His clothes still had small claw marks from the gliders. Biol had not wanted to let him go. Even now, he could feel the echo of her purring against his chest. "I prefer to call it the human situation," Hannah said calmly. "Problem sounds negative." "A researcher entered a sealed habitat without permission," Ven replied. "He touched creatures that have killed 3 people. He broke 17 safety protocols. If that is not a problem, then I do not know what is." "But he survived," Taiho pointed out. "He more than survived. He made friends. That is exactly what concerns me." Ven's crystals shifted to a darker shade. "Humans can touch the untouchable. They can survive the unsurvivable. What else can they do? What other deadly things might they decide to befriend?" The question hung in the air. Rivik pulled up a file on the main screen. "I have been researching human history since yesterday's incident. What I found is disturbing." Images appeared on the screen. Humans standing next to enormous creatures with sharp teeth. Humans holding snakes with bright warning colors. Humans swimming in water filled with predators. On their home planet, Rivik explained, humans did not avoid dangerous creatures. They pursued them. They studied them. They brought them into their homes. Images. A human child hugging a furry creature with massive claws. A human woman kissing a spider the size of her hand. A human man with a snake wrapped around his neck, smiling at the camera. They took the ancestors of their greatest predators, Rivik continued, and turned them into pets. They call them dogs now. Creatures that once hunted humans in packs now sleep in human beds and eat from human hands. The aliens around the table made sounds of shock and disbelief. "That is not the worst part," Rivik said. He changed the image. It showed a planet covered in green and blue, with swirling white clouds. "This is Earth, the human homeworld. Classification, Category 9, Death World." The room went silent. Category 9 was the second highest danger rating. Only completely uninhabitable planets ranked higher. "Earth has active volcanoes that spray fire into the sky," Rivik said. "It has areas of extreme cold that can freeze a being solid in minutes. It has storms that tear apart buildings. It has creatures in its waters that can swallow ships whole. And the humans did not just survive there. They became the dominant species." He turned to look at the humans. "Your entire evolution was a battle against death. And you won." Hannah nodded slowly. "That is true. Earth is dangerous. But that danger made us who we are. We learned to adapt. We learned to fight. And yes, we learned to make friends with things that could kill us." "Why?" Ambassador Ven demanded. "Why would any intelligent species do this? Hannah thought for a moment. Because we are lonely, I think. Earth was scary. So we looked for companions, creatures that could help us hunt, creatures that could warn us of danger, creatures that could keep us warm at night. We did not care if they were dangerous. We only cared if they could be our friends. The door to the council room suddenly opened. Everyone turned to look. Dr. Salmon walked in, her face determined. Behind her, a small holographic projector floated on a platform. "I have something to show you," she said. She placed the projector on the table and pressed a button. A video began to play. It showed the inside of Habitat 7, but the recording was from months ago. The date stamp proved it. In the video, Salmon was inside the habitat. She wore no protective suit. She was sitting on the ground, and 3 gliders were eating food from her hand. The council erupted in noise. Aliens shouted over each other. Rivik's mouth moved sideways in what might have been anger or shock. "I have been entering the habitat for 4 months," Salmon said calmly. "In secret, at night. I suspected humans were immune to the toxin, so I tested it on myself. I was right. You could have died." Kalish shouted from his seat. "I did not. And in 4 months, I have learned more about Valoran gliders than anyone has learned in 90 years. She changed the video. Now it showed gliders responding to her voice. Coming when she called, following her movements. "They recognize me," Salmon said. "They trust me. They are intelligent social creatures who have been starving for connection, and I gave it to them." She looked at Junho. "I was going to reveal this eventually. I was waiting for the right moment. Then this young man walked in and did what I had been doing, except he did it in front of everyone." Junho smiled slightly. "Sorry for stealing your moment." "Do not be. You proved my point better than I ever could have." Salmon turned to the council. "Humans have a gift. We can bond with creatures that others fear. We can reach across the gap between species. And we want to do this. It is in our nature." Ambassador Vent's crystals flickered rapidly. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I am proposing," Junho said, standing up, "that humans become caretakers for the galaxy's dangerous species. Every station has creatures locked away. Every planet has animals that no one can touch. Let us touch them. Let us care for them. Let us be the bridge between fear and understanding." The room fell quiet. The aliens looked at each other, uncertain. Then a sound came from outside the door. A high, sweet chirp. The door slid open. A young Valoran glider had escaped from Habitat 7. It glided through the air, its scales flashing with excitement. It flew straight across the council room and landed on Commander Rivik's desk. Rivik froze. His body became perfectly still. His compound eyes locked onto the small creature sitting on his papers. The glider tilted its head and chirped at him. "What?" "Do not move," someone whispered. "Any contact is lethal." "Ah!" The glider took a step closer to Rivik, then another. It reached out one small paw toward his face. Everyone held their breath. Junho walked calmly across the room. He did not rush. He did not panic. He simply walked to the desk and gently scooped up the glider in his hands. The creature immediately relaxed, snuggling into his palms. "It is okay," he said softly. "I have got you." He looked at Rivik. The commander was still frozen, his eyes locked on the human and the creature. "Your species is insane," Rivik whispered. Junho smiled. "We prefer to call it enthusiastic." He held the glider against his chest and looked around the council room. Aliens of every shape watched him with a mixture of fear and amazement. "This is what humans do," he said. "We find the things that scare everyone else, and we love them. That is not insanity. That is compassion. And if you let us, we will share that compassion with the entire galaxy." The glider in his arms, PURID, Ambassador Vent's crystals slowly shifted from dark purple to a lighter shade. "You truly believe you can do this? Care for creatures that would kill anyone else?" Junho nodded. "I believe we were born to do this." The council was silent. Then Rivik stood up slowly. He looked at Junho, at the glider, at the humans seated at the table. "Very well," he said. "Prove it." You have 6 months to show that humans can safely manage Habitat 7. If you succeed, we will discuss expanding the program. Junho bowed his head. Thank you, Commander. The glider chirped happily, as if it understood that something important had just happened. And in a way, it had. The galaxy was about to change forever. And it all started because one human could not resist petting a dangerous creature. 6 months passed like a dream. Junho stood on the observation deck above Habitat 7, watching the world he had helped create. The habitat had changed so much since that first day. New trees had been planted. The stream had been widened into a small pond. Platforms and bridges connected different areas, giving the gliders more space to fly and play, and the gliders themselves had changed most of all. 6 months ago, there had been 200 of them. Lonely creatures who had forgotten what it felt like to be touched. Now there were 237. 37 babies had been born since the humans took over care of the habitat. 37 new lives that would grow up knowing the warmth of human hands. Bial glided down from a nearby tree and landed on Junho's shoulder. She was bigger now, her scales brighter than ever. She chirped in his ear and nuzzled against his neck. Good morning to you too, Junho said, scratching behind her ears. The door behind him opened. Solomon walked in, carrying a tablet filled with data. She looked tired, but happy. Running the program was hard work, but it was the best work she had ever done. The latest health reports are in, she said. All the babies are growing well. No signs of illness? The population is stable and healthy, good Junho said. That is very good. They had built something amazing in 6 months. A team of 12 humans now worked in Habitat 7, rotating in shifts so the gliders always had company. They fed the creatures, played with them, treated their injuries, and most importantly, simply sat with them. Giving them the contact they had needed for so long, the news had spread across the galaxy. Videos of humans cuddling the deadly gliders had been viewed billions of times. Other species watched in amazement as creatures that should have killed on contact instead purred and played and begged for attention. We have received another request, Soman said, looking at her tablet. A station in the Outer Rim. They have a population of something called razor serpents. Highly venomous. Nobody can get near them. They want to know if humans can help. Junho smiled. Add it to the list. The list had grown very long. Stations and planets across the galaxy were reaching out. They all had the same question. Could humans help with their dangerous creatures? Could humans touch what nobody else could touch? The answer, again and again, was yes. 3 weeks ago, a human team had traveled to a mining colony to work with creatures called stone crawlers. The animals had acid in their blood that burned through most materials, but human skin was resistant. Now the miners could finally check on their equipment without fear, because humans guided the crawlers away first. Last week, a message had come from a research station studying creatures that produced electrical shocks strong enough to stop hearts. Humans, with their strange resistance to electricity, could handle them safely. A team was preparing to leave tomorrow. The galaxy had given humanity a name for this new role. The caretakers. Taiho walked in, grinning as always. His documentary series had become famous across the galactic network. Humans Will Pet Anything, he had called it. The episode showed humans bonding with creature after creature, species after species. Dangerous animals that had never known kindness were finally meeting beings who wanted to give it. I just got the numbers, Taiho said. 3 billion views on the last episode. 3 billion. We are the most watched series in 12 different species networks. You're not doing this for the views, Salman reminded him. No, but the views help. They show people what humans are really like. They change minds. Taiho looked out at the gliders flying through the habitat. 6 months ago, everyone was afraid of us. They thought we were dangerous because we could survive things that killed others. Now they see the truth. We are dangerous, but not in the way they thought. We are dangerous to loneliness, to fear, to the idea that something cannot be loved. A message appeared on the large screen in the observation room. Hannah's face filled the display, calling from the communications center. Junho, Soman, You need to see this? We just received something from Earth. Something official. She pressed a button, and her image was replaced by a document. It was marked with the seal of the Galactic Union, the organization that connected all the species of known space. The document was a formal declaration. Hannah read it aloud. By unanimous vote of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby recognized for their unique contribution to interspecies relations, for their bravery in approaching what others fear, for their compassion in loving what others reject, for their service as caretakers of the galaxy's forgotten creatures. From this day forward, humanity shall hold the official title of Xenofauna Bonding Specialists, with rights and responsibilities to manage and protect endangered dangerous species across all member worlds. Gyun-ho stared at the screen. His throat felt tight. Buell chirped questioningly on his shoulder, sensing his emotion. "We did it," Salman said softly. "We actually did it." 6 months ago, they had been newcomers, strangers that the galaxy watched with suspicion. Now they were something more. They had found their place among the stars. The door opened again. Commander Rivik walked in, followed by Ambassador Ven. The Solarian's crystals glowed with warm colors. Nothing like the cold purple she had shown at that first council meeting. "I came to offer my congratulations," Ven said. Her voice rang like gentle bells. "I was wrong about humans. I thought your immunity to danger made you threatening. I did not understand that it made you protectors." "Thank you, Ambassador," Junho said. Rivik made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I still think you are all insane. But I have learned that your insanity is a gift. The gliders are healthier than they have ever been. And they are happy. I can see it. Everyone can see it." He looked out at the habitat. A group of baby gliders was chasing each other through the air, tumbling and chirping with joy. Adult gliders watched from the branches, their scales glowing with contentment. 6 months ago, I thought this species was doomed," Rivik said. "Now I believe they have a future. Because of you." The observation deck fell into comfortable silence. Everyone watched the gliders play, each lost in their own thoughts. Then the door opened one more time. Kellis walked in, looking nervous as always, but there was something new in his eyes. A spark of excitement. "There is someone here," he said. "A new human? Just arrived from Earth? She says she was assigned to the caretaker program." He stepped aside, and a young woman walked through the door. She had long dark hair and bright eyes filled with wonder. She could not have been older than